Hello and welcome to the Sports Vibe podcast, brought to you by Vibe 107.6 with me, Noah Abrahams, joined by Ryan Thrussell and Lee Partridge. Well, it's back to pre-season training for the Hornets, at home to Spurs in a friendly on Saturday, and under 3 weeks from Championship football. What will it be like under new manager Vladimir Ivic? A clean slate for the Golden Boys, the upcoming campaign presents itself with a golden opportunity to reset and refocus. But who's staying and who's going? Ryan and I will look forward to Watford's upcoming fixtures, and for the first time in 14 years, a local rivalry with Luton Town. All on the latest episode of the Sports Vibe podcast. Plus, we discuss the Stevenage Great Escape in League 2 and the start of the new campaign for all of our non-league outfits. All of that and more coming up. So, welcome back to the latest episode of the Sports Vibe podcast. We're in pre-season now, getting ready for the Championship with Watford FC, our local non-league sides as well, preparing for the National League and even League 2 with Stevenage. We'll cover that later. Let's start with Watford FC, though, the big boys locally. A new manager, Vladimir Ivic. It's fair to say that he's not that well known, but he's won the Serbian. He's Serbian. He's won the Greek Cup, He's won the Israeli Premier League. He only lost 2 games whilst in charge of Maccabi Tel Aviv. Ryan and Lee, thanks for joining as always. Let's start with Ryan. What are your thoughts on Vladimir Ivic?
Well, he looks to me like quite a scary man. I think seeing on social media and obviously, to be honest with you, knowingly, I didn't really know who he was when his name first came around. But I expected that to be the case in terms of the Pozzos looking for a new manager, someone relatively unknown, because he's always worked for him in the past. I think, his record at Maccabi Tel Aviv is pretty good. I mean, if you create any team to win a championship twice, I think that you must be some kind of respected manager. Even in the Israeli league? Yeah, I think over there, it's not like he's managing Juventus or Bayern Munich, for example. I mean, he's still got to gel a group of players together, and I know you can bear nothing off YouTube highlights or research, but it seems like he does have his philosophy of football, which potentially looks like it's high energy, a high work rate, and we saw that work with Bielsa at Leeds and got them back out the Championship. So, you have to be positive. I mean, last time it was quite deflating talking about Watford being relegated, but now, I'm sort of weirdly excited for the Championship. Let's get behind the new manager. It seems like, he's not going to take no prisoners, and maybe that's what Watford need, especially after last season, and we don't know who's going to remain. But didn't really know too much about him, but I guess we'll find out in the first 5 or 6 games really who he is. Lee, will Vladimir Ivic become the next Marcelo Bielsa? Can he get Watford back up into the Premier League?
Well, I agree with what Ryan was saying. Any manager to win any respective league, you've got to work with a group of players. You've got to get them playing for you. You've got to have their respect. And you've got to do it in a way that's going to win you or get you promotion or win the respective division. So totally agree with what Ryan says there. Didn't know, of course, same as many others, too much about him, but he's come to the club. I think he settled in well and into the local area. And I think he's the man to take us forward.
What will be Ivic's biggest challenge, Ryan, do you think, coming to Hertfordshire, coming to Watford, managing in the Championship, a league that obviously he doesn't, I'm sure he knows it now, but he's never managed in England before. What will be Ivic's biggest challenge? Well, I think the Championship is the biggest challenge, because you can look at a set of fixtures every single week and think, oh, right, well, Middlesbrough are most likely going to beat Rotherham, or Luton might lose to Swansea, for example, but then the results don't go that way. And we know in previous times with Watford being in the Championship that it's such a difficult league. You could be on a good run of form and then suddenly you lose to a team that's in the relegation zone. So I think Ivic's just going to have to get his head around that to begin with, understand that it's a difficult division. I mean, the teams in there, you could look at a number of 10 to 12 teams that you could place your money on going up next season, but then you could have a surprise side. So I think he's going to have to plan for that, and also on top of that as well, there's going to be the factor of trying to gel a squad of players together that might not necessarily
be knowing who's going to stay there, if that makes sense. So obviously, I think the transfer window will run right down to the wire. There'll be players there that may not want to be there, but still haven't secured moves. So he's going to have to find a way of getting the right players into the squad and all performing to the 100% that they should be.
Well, you touched on Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough is the first game of the season. It's Watford versus Middlesbrough, Vicarage Road, the 12th of September. Some massive sides in the Championship. There's plenty to look forward to. Lee, how do you think Watford will fare next season? It could go so many ways, actually, under Ivic. Will it go the way Villa did? They remained in the Championship a few seasons, then went back up. Could it go Sunderland's way? Might it go Stokes? How's it going to go, Lee?
So from our point of view, Watford's point of view, I think that the early games, it's important to stabilise our performances and our results, because yet again they're going to be behind closed doors. I think Vladimir's coming in at the right time for himself as well, because there'll be players leaving, players coming in. There'll be a lot of players that haven't played in the Championship, so it's kind of a blank canvas for him and some of the players, which I think will be a good thing. So, get rid of the dust and let the dust settle from last season. And I think, like Ryan, again, agreeing with Ryan again, there's so many big teams, and there's so many teams that will fancy their chances this year. We're coming down out of the Premier League into the Championship, and I think some of the key players which will stay with us through this division will shine in this division. Now, some players not necessarily made for the Championship. It's a long season, it's a tough season, and maybe that doesn't suit all sorts of players, all types of players, but it certainly suits some, and some of our key players, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will be staying with us. They will shine in that division because they know what to expect from it.
So we'll move on to player ins and outs very shortly. A little stat for you for Middlesbrough. The Hornets have won 3 of their last 5 fixtures against them. They're unbeaten in 7. The big match that everyone's talking about, though, is Luton Town. They come to Vicarage Road on the 26th of September. A massive derby, the first time in 14 years that the two sides have met. The last time was a 1-1 draw in 2006, playing in the Championship. It's a massive tie, Ryan. Are you excited as a Watford fan?
Yeah, of course I am. I think, Lee, you'll probably remember the matches a bit more than what I do, because obviously, as Noel said,
lively.
It has been 14 years, and I was only 12, 13 in 2006, so I can't stand here and say that I remember the matches as much. Yeah, of course I'm excited. Obviously, I know Luton are the main rivals, and of course you have that between the towns, and there's always been that sort of banter there with Luton fans. Yeah, I'm excited. It's a real shame it's behind closed doors, because obviously it would have been a great experience.
Do you think that was done on purpose?
I'm not sure. I guess they have to plan out the fixtures. Obviously, there's conspiracies to say that is the case, and maybe with everything that's going on at the moment, it might have been probably for the best, I think.
Yeah.
But they're never going to tell us that, are they? No. So of course, there's the away match still, and Watford remain in the Championship, and of course there might be some more derbies to come. And that's if Luton can keep themselves in the division. So it's of course it's exciting. Lee, I'm sure you'll probably maybe fill on and tell us a bit more about the history with a bit more experience of this fixture than me.
Fond memories, Lee? Yeah,
for games in the past. They are lively encounters, both for players and fans alike, without going into too much, with that team that are just up the M1 there. It was a fixture I didn't think would be happening for more than one reason. I thought we was going to stay in the Premier League, and it did look in all essence, that they would be going down. But that, both teams sort of finish the season in different ways, shall we say. So, looking forward to this fixture. Absolutely gutted, I must say, that it is going to be behind closed doors for all the Watford fans, because this is a game which, there's a lot of fans that have come to the club in recent years, maybe, or as they've got older, they've started following Watford, and they're not going to get to see this fixture. Now, this fixture, like you say, hasn't happened for 14 years, and hopefully this season we come back out of that division, and they don't. So it may not happen again. So absolutely gutted for the fans that they can't get down to Vicarage Road to watch this, and going with a Watford win. 3-1. I know it's weeks away, but I'm already predicting it. So many big teams, like we've said. You've only got to look at the first few fixtures: Middlesbrough, Sheffield Wednesday, Reading, Derby, Blackburn. All those teams,
massive teams.
That's in the first 6 or 7 games. All those teams will be thinking, we've got a good chance this season. I think it's an open championship, more so than it has been for some years.
This will be one of the best years in the Championship. Let's hope the Watford versus Luton next season is a cup tie. Ryan, you wanted to add to what Lee was saying?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the Luton match is a game that matters to the fans, and I think, it's a real shame it's behind closed doors, because I know Vicarage Road would have been pumping. Let's put it that way, and it would have been a great experience, probably a TV tie, and that so the fans can get behind it. In some ways, I think it's good both sides are playing each other, because I feel it's healthy in football to have rivalries, although obviously not what happens off the pitch. It's good to be able to sort of reignite that rivalry, because I think it adds to seasons, and really Watford in the Premier League didn't really have that, and last 14 years. I know that obviously the media tried to play up to QPR being a bit of a rival. It never felt like that. So I think, it could be good for Watford and Luton to play each other, to settle old scores, and let's hope that Watford come out on top and sort of go back to the Premier League.
Well, everyone's looking forward to it. I mean, in terms of ins and outs of Watford, in terms of transfers, obviously, we've just gone through a global pandemic. There's not going to be that much movement. But look, Everton are interested in Decore, apparently for 35 million. Watford have opened talks with Fulham to sign Alfie Mawson. Etienne Capoue might go to Valencia under Gracia. So there is some movement. What do you make of all the movement, Lee? Do you think Etienne Capoue will go to Valencia? Do you think Decore will go to Everton? What's going to happen?
I thought Capoue staying was my feeling, but a lot of it's down to the individual players, irrespective to what the club wants. If a player really thinks, you know what, I want to play for Watford, I want to play in a championship, I want to get us back up, you've got to take it from that. If a player's head's been turned, or a player wants to move for whatever reason, may want to move out of the country, may want to stay in the Premier League, you've got to take that on board, because you cannot simply, and I don't care what the team is, who the team is, wherever it is in the world, if you haven't got players that don't necessarily commit 100% towards the cause, there is no point having them at the club, no matter who they are. And that doesn't mean to say that players leave under a cloud or in a bad way. It could just be, they're honest, say, look, I want to do this, I want to play there, I've given it my best shot here, and it's time to move on. And you just got to accept that and get the best deal you can possibly out of whichever player it is, and move forwards and not look backwards. It's all about moving forwards. If a player goes, players are always leaving clubs all of the time. And yes, it's disappointing sometimes, no matter what the player is, but it's all about moving forward.
So we've got 3 players that are 100% committed, we know at the moment. Will Hughes, Ken Sema and Domingos Quina all staying. If Deeney leaves, Ryan, and Hughes stays, does Hughes become captain?
I think so, yeah. I think from a fan's perspective, that would be a positive move to give Hughes a captain. Not really sure who else, maybe Ben Foster, but really going to build for the future around Ben Foster, probably not, because I think he's only got maybe 1 or 2 seasons left in him at the club. So yeah, Will Hughes captain. I feel like he shows a lot of fight on the pitch, and probably was Watford's best player between the end of the season and the start. Potentially Cathcart stays and he plays, maybe he could be captain, but I think Will Hughes would be the fans' choice, and I think given the situation and the relegation, I think that's what they'll do if Deeney moves on, which obviously we're not sure yet if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainties, even with transfers again. If Alfie Mawson moves from Fulham, he was a big signing at Fulham, so he could be a really valuable player at Watford. If fans will even be allowed back in the ground, so there's the ballot system now that Watford have put in place, and it means that it's a fair and equitable way of fans being allowed access to Vicarage Road. I think it's a good system, Lee.
Well, yeah, I couldn't really see any other fair way of doing it. It's kind of, everyone wants to get back at football and, get back as safe as possible, of course. And by that, it means less people in there. You want everyone to share, a part of it at least. So I couldn't see another way, a fairer way of doing it myself.
Well, if you were a season ticket holder last season, or if you've bought a load of tickets, you're basically eligible. Ryan, does that make you eligible?
Yeah, I bought tickets last season, of course.
There you
go, I know it's going to be a tricky situation for any club to manage, and then on top of that, you got stadiums that are bigger than other stadiums. So you could argue, well, how come Arsenal can get more fans in than Watford, for example? But obviously, it's the size matters at the end of the day. But it's going to, it's. I think it's a fair system. Obviously, it'd be nice to see fans back in there. It's going to be a very different experience if you do end up going. It's going to be quieter. There's not really much chanting allowed and that. So, of course, obviously, we all want a safe return to football and hope that, sort of the COVID situation gets better. But for now, I think that the clubs are trying to do their best. It's a situation that they can never, ever plan for. So, everyone's learning more and slowly but surely we'll probably fall back into some sort of normality.
Well, it's hit a lot of clubs hard, especially the non-league side, who actually look pretty strong heading into the next season. Stevenage, they're not non-league because they've managed to stay in the Football League. They managed to stay in League Two because of some amazing great escape with Macclesfield. And what essentially happened is Macclesfield were relegated by the EFL because what happened, Ryan?
Yeah, it was all done on points per game. There was an appeal over a points deduction. Macclesfield got deducted 2 points. I believe it was for paying wages late in March. And obviously that meant Macclesfield were going down. Stevenage then were relegated. But obviously now there was an appeal. It was lost. So at the time, last time, we probably owe Stevenage a big apology because obviously we were saying that they were relegated. So they've now survived. I know one joyous Stevenage fan who used to work here is very happy about that. Text me. So that's another year of League Two football for Stevenage. They've made quite a lot of signings, Stevenage. So I wouldn't be surprised they have a lot better season than what they did last season because it can't get any worse, let's put it that way. So let's hope, more positive results for Stevenage next year.
I believe Stevenage signed one of the Hemel Hempstead strikers. Lee, are you looking forward to going to Wealdstone in the National League? Hemel Hempstead, St Albans City still in the National League South, and Boreham Wood and Barnet obviously in the National League too. So plenty of local football to go and get yourself down to. Yeah,
just touching on the Stevenage, good to see them still in the division with everything that did go on with Macclesfield. I think that was the right result. Not, of course, it's not fair on the fans, but they've got to set some sort of precedent. And Stevenage did have a game in hand, which they were saying, well, we still got a game in hand. And so it's good to see Stevenage, and they've had some development at their ground. So it's good to see them in the league still. Non-league, we've said this since the pandemic and fans going back, it's absolute critical for these clubs to stay afloat, the non-league clubs especially, because they rely so heavily on the match day income, and without fans there, the food or the bars or the gate receipts, the merchandise, all this doesn't get sold, and it just leaves such a void. And there is the worry that many teams wouldn't be able to survive, fans not going back. So the talk is that in October, fans, even if it's a limited number, smaller number, being able to go back to see their local non-league sides, that's fantastic news. And I'm looking forward to getting to as many of the games as possible.
So am I. So that's about it from this week's Sports Vibe podcast. We've all got our fingers crossed that Messi signs for Watford. No idea if he will, but that's the rumour I've heard from Argentina. So we'll end the chance. Well, there is a chance. There's always a chance. We'll end the podcast on that happy note. Ryan, Lee, thanks for joining.
No worries at all.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll chat before the Middlesbrough match.
We certainly will. Go check out the podcast on our website, vibe1076.co.uk, on Spotify and all major platforms, and we'll see you next week.